Hello everyone, Master Xeon1001 here, and in this video I wanted to do a special launch video to commemorate the release of hardops 009841 Neodymium. Originally this was going to be a micro release that would have stayed in the Thulium line. However, I felt that this was such a dramatic change and departure from the previous update that it was worth giving a special name to let users know that this is indeed a new update. I mean, there are always, of course, frequent updates for all the bugs that are reported by our vigilant operatives and constant users. We always want to be putting out updates frequently to keep these tools working at their best. So if you find yourself having a problem, do check back with us and you'll find that more than likely there's been a fix put up to address that issue. And without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, before I begin, I'm going to be hoping that everyone downloading this update is going to be trying it with 2.82 more than likely, because we've done most of our improvements with that in mind going forward, since that is going to basically be the future and 2.83 is already in progress. If you do use it with 2.82, things should work fine. However, it's just not going to be as good as the intended experience, of course. So, for the most part, Hops should be the same as it was last release, with a few usability improvements and changes to the way that our menus are. There's also been some improvements done to Hops tool, where now we have text for the dots and things like that. So now you actually know what's going on. Of course, in the future, I want more text, but I'll be going over that a little bit more in depth in the future. But the main thing about this release is definitely going to be the new dice that's added to Hops that we'll be talking about more in depth as we get through this video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Buongiorno 7 is an interesting guy to work with us. On one hand, I almost can't tell what his level is, but on the other hand, you point him at a target and have him shoot, he'll annihilate it. So to start off with this release, in the mesh tools is Twist 360, where when you bring it up, you'll notice that now auto centers. Very nice. And you can also press D to displace it in order to choose how far it's being offset. Special care was taken to make sure that it was fluid with the mouse. And that's the first thing, right? So after he did that, I was like, what else could we do? Let's try giving a tougher mission. And also, part of Twist 360 is putting loop cuts in it and working on it non-destructively and having it keep your shape being centered while you're working on it. But this is the beauty of the new Twist 360. I've actually been looking at it so much that I'm like blind to it. But one of the things I do want to remind people is that if you have faces, interior faces like this, they're going to be in every area, and we don't even want those marked sharp, and we don't even want those to exist, because this is a better shape. And once you twist 360, you're able to just draw a box and begin cutting and do your typical workflows that you would use, because all the modifiers that have been added for this have been rendered disabled, which will bypass the sort, allowing you to work with box cutter. So special care was also taken there. I made sure to let Buongiorno know that more than likely the first thing people are going to want to do after cutting such a shape is probably box cut it. I mean, probably not, but I don't know. I keep it pretty weird, so I always just jump to box cut. So let's just delete that. We don't need it. And we're just going to insert another cube. And so, after Buongiorno completed that, I gave him another mission. I was like, a dicer has been like the ultimate request. So starting off with box cutter, we're just going to cut this box. And I'm just going to cut one of my favorite shapes to create for this particular test. And we're just going to switch to box here. And of course, box cutter's got a massive thing in the works as well. However, we always like to keep these things close to the chest until it's closer to completion. So here we are with our shape. Of course, everything's live and mirrored. So I'm going to need to apply everything with visual geometry to mesh on the Control A. And we can go under mesh tools, and we're going to bring up dice, and dice is just going to add edge loops in here, which will cut across our form, whether it be Ngon or quad, which is the type of edge loop cutter I've always wanted in Blender. However, I'm going to cancel this, and we're going to just twist 360 this. So this is actually what we have right now, which in a way is actually kind of interesting. I never experimented with it like that, but we could probably make that work. But I'm just going to go in here, bring up dice, and give it some cuts, and now you can see that everything's all smooth here. So this is what dice is all about. And the moment I saw this, I was like, oh my God, we have to get this out in this next release. Customers have to be using that immediately. So we can also go in our modifier stack and add a weld and make sure that our array is merging on first last. However, that seam in the middle, just don't like it. So let's see what we can do to fix it. Oh, dissolve that one point, save the cheerleader, save the world. Of course, a little bit of weirdness there. We can actually select this thing, resymmetrize it to the other side, and now it's actually looking just right. But the moment that these two tools came together, I found that they were an inseparable pair, and this is just going to change the future of hard surface modeling, at least in my opinion. I did a video previously where I talked about curve cutting and how I wanted to use curves and various systems to deform meshes in order to make curve cutters. The system of dice is just going to change the way that we're able to deform cutters to the surface, so things are only going to get more interesting from here. But I'm just amazed that this is one of the first things we're using to start off 2020. So with that, I definitely welcome Bongiorno7 to the team. His work is greatly appreciated, and definitely give him a shout out if y'all appreciate his work, find yourselves enjoying it. Coders always love hearing about their code actually working, not just when it's not working, but also enjoy hearing about when it's not working, so we can get to work on improving that. I always let everyone know that our work is only beginning with something. After we release it, it's bug fixes, customer requests, additional ideas. The best ideas come from just random people. And this whole idea spawned from a tool called QOT, which is just Q operations and 2box, which was supplied to us by Imperfect Link. It's just a tool that just turns things into a box. But with this idea, it has spawned so much more than just a box. In fact, I woke up this morning wondering if we should just make a mode where we just choose what face it spawns to be perfectly the size of the object, like some sort of modal operator. But, we'll get to that idea as we flesh it out a little bit more. But continuing on to the next one. So AR is an interesting one. He's been with us since the very beginning. He's pretty much 50% of hardops and 100% of box cutter. So without him, I would have no incentive to go on, except for proxy. I'd go on with proxy for a while, but I definitely need everyone. My goal is to work with everyone in this life and the next. So AR, I'll ask him stuff like, hey, you got anything you want to add? And he'll say, we'll see. And so, one of those things we saw about is that inside of the Shift Q pie menu, there's now options to direct shift. So you can now shift a cut into a slice just like that, just by selecting the bowl shape. Right here, we'll set up another difference. Actually, it looks like we got a bit of a situation there. Kind of strange, whatever. So we're going to go ahead and shift this one into an inset. And you can see that now I've shifted this into an inset, and I can even scroll through my mods, grab this thing and adjust the thickness to really get the shape that I want here. But this is just one of the small things. But we press Alt W, jump over to Hops tool, and you can see that now whenever you hover over bowl shaped dots, it'll now show you text, which is really cool. If we put a bevel on this, something like that, and we hover over the bevel dot, you can see that the bevel dot also will tell you its name. And of course, you can control right click in order to bring up its menu. I'll do copy in order to make a copy of this, and we'll go in this one and set the angle to 60. And this is just one of the ways I enjoy stepping. And then I'll jump back to box cutter, do a cut, and we could jump back into Hops tool. And now Hops tool just feels a little bit more concrete as far as what I envision it being. So part of my big push for this year is to make Hops tool the tool of the year, like we did with box cutter last year. But with Hops tool, I want to definitely take it a lot farther. But before I go in the direction I want to go, I would definitely like AR to finish his vision to the way that he wants it to be, because I always tell him, like, dude, I'm ready to destroy that tool, dude. Like, the moment you are done with it, I have so many ideas. First, we'll consolidate all this UI, we'll add additional UI, we'll put UI on top of that, like, I'll just go crazy with it. So I'm very proud of the work that's been done here with Hops tool. Hops tool is going to be the tool that we're going to be definitely focusing a lot of our energy on. and making it a prime spot for customers to want to go to. So if we just put a quick Z array, you can always grab the Z dot to mess with it, but I also had AR make it where if you press 1 at the top of the keyboard, it just sets it to 1. So just in case you're just trying to get it to 1, it just makes it a lot easier. So let's say I was going through and doing the same thing I showed y'all earlier where I applied a mesh, use some box cutter on it to, let's see, switch over to this. And the reason I always use box cutter is just old habits die hard, and also I want to show that these tools are basically interchangeable. I could just be shift drop in my 3D cursor and placing shapes that way, which reminds me that inside of Hops tool there's a new Hops helper, which right now it's set to D. I was trying to get it set to Control D, but we don't currently have a D map, so we'll just be dealing with that in the future. These 3 options here, one will orient your bowl shapes to the cursor, one will add a weighted normal to bowl shapes if that's needed, and the other one will add a mirror to bowl shapes if that's needed. So with these 2 checked, we could just add this here, and we'll just bring this shape in and use our hops ring, which also has text now, in order to cut this out, and just create a quick shape. Control A, visual geometry to mesh. We'll alt mirror it, but I'll use symmetry instead, just so it's a one and done mirror. And then we'll go under classic dice, which dice didn't make it into Hops tool, but that's because I definitely want to take a special approach for it. Dice isn't non-destructive, so if you try to use it inside of Hops tool on Hops shapes non-destructively, you're not going to have the best time. But after using dice, you can see that all these loops have been cut into it, allowing us to combo back with Twist 360. And at this point, we want to use Twist 360 to actually set the amount here. But after this, we can actually begin playing with the Hops dots to just have a little bit of fun and get some interesting shapes here. I see that maybe we want to probably reverse that. But just to let you know that all these systems are built to play with each other. So if you are trying to get inside of here and just play with things, it's that easy. So we'll just delete everything. And I want to show another thing that's been added, and that is the vertex. So if you click on it, a vertex is placed. And so not much can be done with it. But if we click on, let's see, if we click on extrude X and extrude Y, we've created a plane. And if we use move X and move Y, we now have dots to move it. So we can actually position it now. And we can use mirror to mirror this to the other side using a mirror modifier. And so now we basically have this dynamic shape that is able to be modified, once we put all our modifiers in order. And if we press Alt V, we can look at the wireframe, because I want to let you know that if we go to the next step of putting a corner bevel, it's going to look like that, and we don't want that. So instead, we'll follow it up with a decimate, which AR knows exactly what I hate by making all the options up here icons. It's just, I've gotten used to it, but I definitely am not a icons only type of guy. And so you can see with our 2D bevel that when it's added, we can go and control tilde, and you can see that 2D bevel's added with the clamp overlap off and a weld modifier. So that way you can nicely bring these things all the way into meat without having issues. And of course, you can hold control and shift and drag these dots to add additional segments and adjust additional parameters. But we should also have that part of the tooltip as part in the future. I mean, as I look at these tools, all I can do is continue to add additional requests to it, which will just drive the team crazy. But I'll stop now. So we'll go ahead and jump to solidify. And we probably want to grab that dot and actually push it the opposite way. It's probably something misused here. There we go. So with this here now, we have our stack currently looking like this. And keep in mind that we're stacking all these with just dots and clicking these icons up here. So the goal is to have something that you can get in here and have fun with. I mean, Hops tool is supposed to be your first destination as far as getting acquainted with the non-destructive workflow and getting in here and just having fun. I will actually put that's an extrude Z. I will put a displace Z so we can push this back down. And then we'll add a chamfer bevel, or a the finisher bevel, which is this third icon. And with that, we can now begin actually working on this form. So let's say I wanted to just do a cut. You can see that the moment I did that cut, there was a mishap. And more than likely, that is as a result of something going on with the sort. So if we go in and take a look at our modifiers, I do want to remind users that you are able to basically lock all the modifiers in the stack using the render tab that you don't want sorted. So now we're able to just cut this shape and there's no problem. So in the event that you're using Hops tool and you're cycling into a Boolean workflow and you're having issues, you definitely want to check that out. So while we're in here, we can also bring back our bowl shape right here. If you're working on a large scale model, it is worth saying that you should increase the fade distance. You can see that right here, you can see the dot, but since it's like the same color as my UI, it's not very visible. And as my mouse goes here, it actually is no longer possible to see. So I'm almost less of a fan of the idea of having fading dots, but you know, Proxy, he loves a little bit of fade. So we can actually change our fade distance like something like 100, which will make him cringe. And you can see that now the dots are always visible in the view that you're in. So I just wanted to emphasize that over the course of this. And before closing this up, let's put an array Z on this. And I just want to let y'all know that if you're moving the array and you just want to place the object on top of the next one, just press 1 and just call it a day. So if you are using X and you're messing with the X and you just want to put it at 1 and call it a day, that's what you would do. And so on. So on to the next thing. Sometimes I'll come up with an idea that's kind of incomplete and requires a bit more cook time. So I'm always honored that Proxy is willing to work on these random ideas. So one of them was blank material, where you can just select everything. I'm just selecting everything with A, and then I can press Alt-M and just add a blank material. In the previous update, we added the ability to add blank materials to curves and everything else instead of just meshes. So, you know, nothing much has actually changed there. However, blank material itself has. So if we press Alt-M, you can, there is now a panel here where you can even make glass materials and emission pulse material. So, you know, over the course of time, I've been doing videos, I've been showing myself setting up this certain pulse driver, which was cool and all, but now you can actually do it just through the blank material, making your life a lot easier. So just to play with this in action, we're just going to Alt-M, blank material, and we're going to choose glass for this. And if we jump into render mode, you can actually see what's going on. So now this is just a quick little glass material. You can also see that I have interior faces and some doubles and some Z fighting, but that's because everything just got turned to glass and this was originally a solid part. If I gave it some solidification, it'd look less weird, but we're just gonna Alt-M, add a blank material, and we're just gonna change that to be principal. So with principal, we definitely needed to do some improvements with the colors that it was giving. So there's been some changes done, and now it should give you more friendly, hard surfacey colors, I feel. We still had a bit of a discussion about silver and colors of metal and white being in rotation because metals can be white. I don't care. I want it black. I want everything black. In fact, let's just make it where it works for everyone, where everyone can just choose whatever colors they want, and we just randomly select from a pool of them, which, you know, we'll save that idea for next time. So right here, I'm using box cutter just to do this slice, and we're going to press Alt-M. We're going to set this up to be an emission. So whenever you do emission, you definitely want to turn off grayscale because now you get a colored pulsing object. And so special care was taken that if you go under render and you turn on, say, bloom, you get hit in the face with something beautiful. That was definitely the goal with bloom. I was originally was given values like 0.6. I was like, we're going to have to multiply that by like 20. That's not pulsy enough. So let's do it again to this one. And this one's just another random pulse material. And we'll do it here. And the interesting thing is that you can also adjust the frequency of it as well. So if we want this one to pulse more often, that one's now just a pulsier pulse. You know, depending on the frequency of your pulse, who knows, maybe you are in an SOS situation, you need to let people know, hey, I need help right now. So this is random material V340 right here. And I'm extremely proud of it. I love the fact that Proxy was willing to put this together on such short notice because it was such a random idea. And sometimes with these sort of things, I pitch him to AR and he's like, I don't know. I mean, it happens all the time. We'll have a discussion. I'm like, yeah, I don't actually think that task is for you because you're not particularly engaged with it. So it's not something that I think you'll want to do. So sometimes it's important tasking people with the right thing. But blank material definitely has turned into a fun time. So I'm just trying to switch this over to principal, but I think my mouse is having some issues here. There we go. So now I'm back to getting random blank materials. I don't want random color materials, but if you're trying to be real weird, do that. But I definitely want to see you guys blinking some lights, giving a shout out to Proxy, let him know that y'all love his work, because we're definitely enthusiastic about having him on our team. He's brought a degree of professionalism to us. In a way, we look at him like our boss, where he reviews our stuff, tells us if we've done good or what can be improved, and helps us continue moving forward with code. So just an integral asset to our team, and I'm just so proud to be presenting his Blank Material V3 to you guys, and I hope that y'all give it a try and report with us how you feel it could be improved in the future, just what way we can make the best blank material, because anything's better than just that default white principal shader that Blender gives you. No dish on Blender. I mean, at least just make it dark gray and take away some roughness so it just looks casual. But blank material V3, guys. So on to the next thing. So for this final chapter, I'll be talking about myself, because I also made some changes, of course. I'm the director. So as far as the Q menu goes, I did make a few calls based on user comments to just change certain things. So you will notice that the add modifier panel has been slimmed down just a little bit. I want to consolidate this into one in the future and just make this a single solution. I mean, I wanted something completely different. I didn't even want a sub menu of this. These options are great and useful, but someday I would like to consolidate them all into a single tool that solves all of our needs, even though some of these needs that we have to solve are very, very specific when we use these things. Under mesh tools, things were getting a little slim here, and the last release was aimed at slimming out the mesh tools so that we can put a few new ideas in here, and Dice was definitely one of them. Twist 360, we were planning on revamping it and bringing it back, so I'm so proud of Bonjourno 7 for getting that done. Spherecast is just one of those classics, but really it's just an idea that I came up with, so I use it a lot for turning cubes to spheres. But it really doesn't fit in the modifier panels, but we may reevaluate these menus in the future. But hops menus are always going to be changing, because there's plans in place that have not yet been executed in order for us to finally show y'all what we're really going for. But I feel that every release shows a little bit more of the puzzle of what we're going for. And so I probably should have put in some work as far as adding a historical hop section into the settings area, so you would be able to select your favorite hops options from the past and pin them into quick favorites. But we do want to try a better idea of, just kind of reevaluating our system, maybe even redoing it from the ground up, depending on certain aspects, and build a stronger, more customizable hops that's caterable to you, the user, instead of it being specific to me, MX, or to AR, or to Proxy, but something that's versatile and suitable for everyone. So one of the changes done with Sharpen, which isn't reflected in the tooltip, unfortunately, at this moment, is that alt-clicking at this moment with default settings will utilize something called weight mod. And if you're working and you're just beveling, and let's say we put another bevel and I press X to half bevel that, and we're just cutting, this is an argument we have a lot internally. AR is so against using a weighted normal mod. However, I feel that it's the only solution we have for shading at this time, besides giving things hard edges like we used to. And I feel that that was such a heavy-handed approach, and it was cruel of me to use that as a way of working and then have people deal with it. I mean, Mesh Machine is the secret weapon, guys. I mean, if you're not using Mesh Machine behind the scenes, you definitely should. I definitely plan on doing more content showing the full pipeline that I use in my personal work all the time, which is, all the tools that I talk about and tweet about so frantically. I love them all. I'm not joking on any of my endorsements, but I was about to say something terrible. So, you see right here, there's like a little bit of a shading issue. There's a little bit of a shading issue there. So if you alt-click Sharpen, it will just fix that. And by fix it, I mean it will put a weighted normal mod on the end with Keep Sharp. And so, Sharpen is this tool that we want to handle sharpening and also our basic apply. But I don't want it exceeding the scope that it did previously. Like previously, it was getting so crazy that I was thinking of hacks to have added to it to expand on its uses that were just beyond its scope. And when it comes to explaining these tools, I definitely see that the more crazy we get with them, the harder they are to explain, because we have to explain all the decisions that we make. I know I'm just sitting here staring at a cube and talking. Yeah, I know it's just terrible. I should just be cutting this. I mean, I could just Box City, I just start talking and Box City will just come. But another thing that we also improved in this is Smart Apply. Smart Apply in the previous version was not the idea that I wanted it to be, but I want Smart Apply to take over for what C Sharpen did, which C Sharpen needs to apply select modifiers, not the last bevel and not the weighted normal. And then it would receiving messages. Sorry, I got distracted. It would apply select modifiers, but it wouldn't apply to last bevel and it wouldn't apply to weighted normal. If it applies to weighted normal, your normals are going to be messed up and your geometry is going to be locked and your next cut's just not going to shade right. And if you don't have, if your last bevel gets applied, then you're adding a whole ton of geometry. Like, we look at this mesh and the big bevels aren't so bad, but those little bevels are finisher bevels. They're on every crucial edge. So if we apply that, we've added a ton of geo. So it's not going to be optimal for dicer. So if you use Smart Apply now, you'll notice that it'll always keep that last bevel level live. So if you have a single bevel and you need to apply a mesh, just use Control-A visual to mesh. Don't use Smart Apply to do that. But if you're just trying to collapse all your modifiers, like the goal was that if you were in Hops tool, like right here, Hops box, we bring this up, it's pretty much set up for business. Like, I've cut and inserted these boxes over and over to just make sure that when you get in here, this is the first thing you can do. If you're not able to insert a hops box and just cut it immediately with box cutter, update your version immediately and maybe contact us in one of the support channels, because this is intended to be a fun time modeling. So when I hear people having a bad time and running all these Boolean issues, those are the things that keep me up at night, because I'm like, how is my vision getting so misinterpreted to be this? I also want people to be capable of doing work, but that doesn't mean while we're doing work we have to not have fun. So that's the purpose of hardops, is to make modeling more entertaining. I mean, we have serious goals and serious ambitions, but for the most part, I do enjoy the degree of randomness to us, because if you saw my rendering video, Blender itself is quite random. And so I try to expand on some of that randomness, because those ideas, they're from everywhere. And just so many just great things in Blender that can be expanded upon. And, right now we're just dancing in place on a tool. But I would love to dance on Blender, or dance with Blender, not dance on Blender. But if we could, party with Blender and talk about changing some modeling, I would be all for it. But right now, Hops is just our little derby racer that we're just fine-tuning until it's perfect, and then we'll be on to the next idea. As a team, we're always talking about what could be next, what could be new. I'm personally excited for Blender to get VR support, so that someday we can have headsets on and box cut in VR, box cut live, box cut with each other. But also, I do want to add like arcade type features and analytics that will keep track of like how many boxes have been cut, user levels as far as like their usage and stuff like that will help us with support issues and analysis. I'm very big on analysis, so part of my specialty or curse with everyone that I work with here is my ability to micromanage, and I'm thinking about not only the tasks, but I'm thinking about your brain, and I'm thinking about how your brain is processing the task and how effective you are at dealing with the task, and if you're against the task, and if you hate the task, and if you find this job disengaging. These are the things that I think about that truly concern me. The task is just a means to an end, but our goal with everyone we work with is to analyze their strengths and then put them to work doing something that they feel would be personally rewarding and would carry this forward. Like, for example, Dicer, I wasn't sure if Bongiorno was actually going to be into the idea, but whenever he was handed it, he was like, you know what, I got this. Imperfect Link gave us 2 box. I was like, dude, we could just get the bounds of a box and put loops in it and just cut a mesh, and Dicer is it. That's the end of the game right there. And now we're talking about Dicer. So if we take this mesh here and we use Smart Apply, which you saw me use Hops tool on this, create it, and put all these booleans. So we'll just Smart Apply. And so now the mesh has been applied. Let's say I wanted to deform this thing like a weirdo. we'll just rotate it by the side, maybe origin to geometry. Origin to geometry is not going to be good with all this good, delicious Boolean fat on the other side. It's just going to make it calculate more weighty. But whatever, let's try dice on this. So just a random test in this video. I should have done it prior to the video, but instead we're doing it right now. So separate the men from the mice. Buongiorno, I hope you're watching. And we dice. And we look at it, and that's a nice dice. How nice of a dice? Well, let's first of all mirror it to the other side. But before that, you know, it'd be cool if we went in Hops tool and used a displace. Well, let's apply to rotation. You know, we're not barbarians. We'll put a displace X on it. But also we want to grab this geo in edit mode now that it's been diced and just pull that out. Like, so long in life have I wanted to do this. I am literally beside myself. Like, I just want y'all to know that Buongiorno will be rewarded handsomely. So we have our shape here, and we can grab our dot and move things. And also I pressed Windows by mistake. And this shape is kind of dense with the bevel on it, so I really can't be displacing this like a weirdo. And also I messed up my mouse again, so there we go. I'm back cooking. We're just going to select this shape and just twist 360. Pray. Let's scroll the wheel down. And things are heavy here, like a lot of geo. But we're just kind of being random here. Whoa. Sometimes being random, you will just blow your own mind, man. Like, Buongiorno hath no idea what he has created. You know, like, you know, people start with us and they're like, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, just try it. And, you know, we'll let you know if you're not doing it. But everyone so far this year has turned out to be so fantastic. And so, you know, everyone's support and promotion of this tool and recommendations, you know, definitely helps us promote our ambitions internally, which I want to turn this into something very massive. So I just thank everyone for their continued support. I mean, if you're watching this video moments after I upload it, you're the real MVP. And also, this piece is just so crazy. So that is Smart Material improved in a nutshell. So I had someone get with us on the Hops Discord and ask me some questions about step, which Gleb did a video talking about step. And in the video, you know, when I was talking with him on the side about it, I was like, oh, Gleb, why are you talking about step? That thing is so old and done. Like, we're removing that. That idea doesn't need to exist anymore. So we actually I went back in and worked on a non-destructive version. And I had a non-destructive version. It was called bevel half that, you know, all the non-destructive version would do is just add a new bevel that's half of the last bevel. That's all it has to do. So if we click on this, it's going to add a bevel half. And that means on the next cut, it's going to look like that. It's going to be immediately capable of looking good. So we just work. I mean, it's a non-destructive thing. It's not some complex concept or anything anymore. I mean, that's been my goal with it is like to make some of these things just synonymous. Like, you know, step is something you can do with bevel. For example, like right here, I'll just narrow that down. But let's say I wanted to step this again. We look at the tooltip, and when it comes to an angle workflow, Control and Shift will set your angle to 60. So I'll click on that, and, you know, we don't see what our number is going to. So I'll just press X. If we open the help, X will set the bevel to half of previous bevel level. So we'll just press X, just drop it. And now our next cut is just a little bit smaller than this one. In fact, we'll need to grab this bull shape and move it out the way. It's getting a little bit of chatter there. You know, when it comes to these angle workflows, you're at the mercy of Blender itself. But our goal is to get like the tools in here to help us solve these problems so we don't have to come up with these nudging compromises. Like, you know, I'm a master of a million nudges. I've had to nudge a million things, but, you know, we're nudging less and less as time goes on. So, you know, even though we're always wanting something additional from Blender, the amount that they've given back to us to have its potential to improve the hard surface pipeline is just immense. You know, sometimes I think people get caught up in the whole performance bits and sculpting being kind of in a situation, but Blender is always gradually improving and always getting better by leaps and strides. I mean, still the greatest 3D program ever made. If I was kicked out of this thing, I would right overboard. I would go. So we press Q and we alt-click sharpen, and notice how the shading just doesn't look terrible anymore. And we'll press Control-Shift-B for the bevel helper, and we'll just jump that up to 12, maybe jump that up to 12. Maybe even multiply that by 2, divide it by half. Maybe play with its number. I always talk to people about when playing with these bevels, like people want a different bevel level after every cut. But there's like this cascading effect. As you saw there, if I play with this first bevel level and I go the wrong way, you can see that it causes cascades that impact every other level. Like one day I want to get rid of that so that we can play with these levels without any sort of impact on the higher levels. I mean, it'll take a degree of thinking, but I noticed that if I bring up these sort of things in videos, that users come up with rather creative options and get back to me about how to manage these sort of things, like some sort of like mesh freeze. Like my dream now is to have bevel inside of a box, but not bevel be the corner of a box, right? Like let's say I draw a slice. This slice has a bevel on the edge. I don't want the bevel on the edge. I want all the bevels inside of this box to be individually controllable on different levels. Inside of this box, though, like it'd be like an isolation box area, and then we'd have to figure out a way to perfect merge it with this area. I mean, I think weld is the ticket, but we will maybe need some sort of like interior face remover someday or something that just makes meshes manifold. But here I am just throwing out ideas. But I mean, all these things are they start off as dreams and just come to pass. So I look forward to everything that's going to happen with Hops in 2020. I mean, everything that you're seeing in this update, this was intended to be a bit of a micro update to set the stage before I have to start this job. But there's bigger things a brewing inside. And, Buongiorno is just our first new cell. There's actually multiple new cells involved. And, AR has opened my eyes to a different way of seeing things. Managing hops and box cutter, we've been dealing with a state, and a state like in a country. But we could deal with a continent, we could deal with a planet, we could deal with a universe. And so my dreams are starting to grow a little bigger than hops now. I mean, this tool and the success that everyone has shown has given success to various ideas that are, I think, maybe even more capable. Like, I mean, I love Shaper on iPad so much. I find it to be a mandatory app that everyone uses. I wouldn't mind taking a shot at that myself, using our team as a management system for an external team that would put this sort of thing together. But over these years, my goal is to build a sort of team coalescence and unity so that we can take on the final task, like the final goal, which is to be able to make any shape, any time, any way you want to, and deform it perfectly and never have to deal with shading. And, machine is a part of this puzzle. Everyone involved in this whole Boolean war situation is a part of the puzzle. Everything that they bring to the table helps solve just a little bit more. And just one day we will eventually be able to make every hard surface shape imaginable, shade it perfectly, be able to UV it, export it, render it without flickers or artifacting, and just cut a new slit in the CG world that just shows that, maybe you don't need perfect topology to get a perfect result. So with that, I'm proud to release the next version of Hardops, and I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.